The key headline feature, other than the dependency injection modules, blah, 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 of Angular, is data binding. So in its simplest form, you have something like this. You have a div, ng-show. Thank you. Much better. All right. ng-show equals, and then you're binding to something here. I'm just going to call it is visible, or I also need to drop different values. That is indeed the case. Yes, yes. Full whiteboard presentation. What could go wrong?
What was the name of your company?
We don't talk about that. Not until the whiteboard presentation goes well, at least. So, for simplicity's sake, because this is a that says is visible. That's a div. It's only ng-show is a directive. It's trying to only show this thing if this property is something that it cares about. So this property is going to be set in a controller. I ruined this marker. No, that marker doesn't like water, believe it or not. Scope. All right. All right, so we're going to abandon this part of the board from now on. We're going to come back over here. We're also going to abandon the idea of water. So it's going to have somewhere in its controller something that sets scope.isVisible to a value. It could be true, it could be false. Now the really interesting thing, and the thing that gives Angular power here, is what you're doing is not just strictly binding to a JavaScript property or evaluating JavaScript at this point. This is an expression. It's not just a strict property. I was going to draw something with that in right expression, but I realized I'd ruined this marker just in time. So this could be a function call, actually. It could have all sorts of things inside of there. It could be an expression such as x is less than 5 and y is greater than 10. This is a really silly thing to do inside of an expression, inside of an ng-show and Angular, but you have that power. You have the ability to call as many functions as you want, add them together, or them together, or do whatever you want. And the way that works is because inside of this $apply and $watch cycle, well, first off, this is what goes on the watch list. That's where we were going with this. So the expressions go into the watch list. Angular has a lexer and a parser built in for these expressions. They are not full-on JavaScript expressions, though you'd be hard to find some JavaScript that couldn't execute in there. I'm sure if you tried to find a contrived example, you could manage it, because it is using its own lexer and parser. So it uses something called its $eval service, which we'll pull up in a minute on the screen for everybody to look at. And inside of the $eval service, inside of that file, which is in the parser is in parse.js in Angular, you have a big variable called operators. Let's just pull that up. It's rather interesting. It shows you all of the ways that Angular is actually managing these expressions, which is actually very significant to what you can do and how Angular works overall. I think I have to